What's up, internet? Do you know of someone who insists on knowing every single little detail before they will commit to saying yes? Whether it is choosing a new movie to watch or trying out a new restaurant around the corner, they need to know exactly what's on the menu before they will feel comfortable saying yes. This is fine, but when done excessively, especially when you're on the receiving end of this, it can be quite annoying. And who knows, maybe you are someone who does this from time to time. I certainly used to do it, and that's why I developed a simple little tactic that can not only help you to address this issue, but also generally increases the quality of your experiences overall. Hello, if you ever met, my name is Trey, and this channel is all about self-improvement. I'll be sharing tools, ideas, techniques, anything that can help you to grow as a person, as well as developing better relationships with those around you. In this video, I'll be sharing one thing that I've learned back then and I continue to implement in my life until today. It helps me to embrace the uncertainty a little bit more and get a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And hopefully at the end of this video, you can try it out for yourself and it works for you too. Back in 2015, I was in the midst of building my first company, an e-commerce project, and I was well over a year into the project when I had a big moment of realization about myself. I realized that I had a streak of perfectionism that was not only holding the project back, but also in many cases causing me a lot of anguish in other areas of my life. In the startup world, there is a lot of uncertainty. I guess it's the same for any creative projects. When you mix that perfectionism with uncertainty, generally you get a pretty bad outcome. It's no surprise that it was around that time I started experiencing huge amount of anxiety. So I went on a mission trying to understand, was there a way that I could reduce this anxiety as well as simultaneously increasing happiness in my life? I was under a lot of stress at that point of time, and it actually got to a point where I became quite motivated to try and find ways and tools and techniques to help me feel better. One of the things I realized quite early on is that it seems to me that the quality of our lives is really the quality of our experiences, and that's just the overarching theme. And within this umbrella of experiences, there are of course relationship experiences, work experiences, life experiences, so on and so forth. The second thing that I learned is that for all its marvels and wonders, our brains are designed to predict and protect. And while that's great for survival purposes, it's not always good for us in terms of helping us to thrive and to be happy. When I learned those two things, something in my mind clicked. If you look at perfectionism, why is there a need to perfect? Well, you can say one, it is wanting to have a sense of control. That may sound obvious to a lot of people. And second is having an expectations whether on how things need to be or how things should be. It was also around the same period of time that I was really into habits, and I know that if I wanted something to work, I needed to make it happen consistently on a small scale rather than having a big event. And that's when I landed upon the concept of skipping the synopsis. A synopsis is a very high level summary of, let's say, a movie. So if you go on imdb.com, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, the 2 to 3 sentences description of the movie is the synopsis. And in the case of a movie, I also consider a trailer to be part of the synopsis. There are synopses on books, so if you read on the book covers, and probably you can even say for events. So if you go to an exhibition, there will be a synopsis of what the event is about. And my idea here is really simple, that I would experience the events themselves without actually reading the synopsis and just go in and enjoy the experience for what it is. And in doing so, I wanted to see if this was a way that could both reduce my expectations, since the less you know, the less you can expect, as well as reducing the sense of control, the need for control that I had that was both tied to my perfectionism. I began testing this out in various aspects of my life, on movies, on books and events, and I think the seminal moment for me really clicked when I went to a meditation retreat. Not too long after I started practicing this. It was a 10-day meditation retreat. It was a silent meditation retreat, and that's all I knew, and I made it a point not to read into anything more. I just got the bare minimum requirement information on when to show up and where the location is, and I just wanted to go there. This meditation retreat, the Vipassana retreat, is quite famous, and there's a lot of forums and there's a lot of information online if you look for it. And I also realized that this is something that a lot of people wanted to ask how other people's experiences are. And I made a conscious attempt not to do that, and I did the opposite. I decided to skip the synopsis entirely and just went to the event. By skipping the synopsis and simply showing up to the retreat, every day was a surprise for me. I really had no idea what was going to happen, and I have to say, it's a really enjoyable and illuminating experience. It created a lot more room for me to simply enjoy the experience for what it is, rather than me constantly comparing against some kind of inbuilt expectations of how the event needs to turn out. Maybe you're thinking right now that this sounds a lot like spontaneity and you're not entirely off base. I would say that this is an idea that lives within spontaneity. The problem with spontaneity I've observed is that we tend to be spontaneous when we feel like being spontaneous. We do it when we feel like it. Skipping the synopsis, on the other hand, is taking a more intentional approach towards cultivating spontaneity. And it is also something that you can do repeatedly. And personally, for me speaking, the way I define it, I feel that spontaneity is a lot about experiencing the moment. So you feel like it in the moment and you do it. Skipping the synopsis, on the other hand, really focuses on the experience itself. So it is not just about showing up because you felt like it, it's also about the follow through and what happens after that moment of so-called inspiration. So there are two key takeaways as to why I think this is a practice that's worth cultivating in your life. First of all, we all have stories that we tell ourselves, and we have these mental loops that we run in our head. And these stories about how the world works, or stories about how we see ourselves. And one thing to know about these stories is that they are not strengthened or weakened by just thinking about them. The best way to change these stories, to change your experience in life, is actually by taking action. And skipping the synopsis is a very small but practical way of helping you to strengthen and weaken these stories by actually doing things. In summary, you know yourself best. You know where you lie on the spectrum of spontaneity, whether you are inclined to do it or not. For some people, it's a lot easier to be spontaneous. As much as I would like to think of myself as a spontaneous person, I'm largely a creature of habit. If you compare my week to week, they don't look that different. So this is a way for me to increase spontaneity in my day-to-day life on a small scale. I hope you found this useful and that in the coming days you will try it out for yourself. Maybe it's on a small scale. It is reading a book or watching a movie, or maybe going to somewhere new, or even go on new dates. Let me know if it works for you, and I would love to hear what you think, and I will see you out there on the internet.